because there's a lot of light. Today there is sun, so we are almost non-seeing.
Jo, se to zavřeš.
We see it.
Yeah?
Like this? Oh no,
Yeah,
it's not
it's
terrible.
not really
No.
Yeah, so okay, I think we can pursue with the Cécile's second lecture. As you see, the title is Hagiographical Construction and Images, and it will help us to find a leaf conch in order to reach slowly Saint Benoit. So, well, we can just start and continue.
Okay. Let me start this lecture with an example so as to set the bound of our reflection. This example is that of the image that opens the painted cycle of the Vita of Saint Radegonde. Extract from manuscript in Poitiers Library dated back to the end of the 11th centuries. This imaging, thoroughly studied by Piotr Skubiszewski, relates Radegonde's forced marriage. He hears Fortuna's text, and when King Clotaire, in expensive dressing, wanted to receive her in Vitry, she ran away from Atiès via Beralcha at night with a few people. From there, as he had her led to Soissons to raise her to the dignity of queen, she avoided any royal ceremony so as to rise, not for the world but for God, as she was in his service. So, she's married a world prince, however without parting from the Prince of Heaven. Now, if we study this visual tradition in keeping with these images, we can see a saint appearing before his judge. Actually, nothing in the Fortuna's text, Fortuna wrote about the first meeting between Radegonde and Clotaire looks like the comparison of the saint prisoner in front of his persecutor, his judge. Such is, however, the meaning of these images. It is directly inspired by the visual tradition showing the Christ brought to appear before the great priest, Herod or Pilate. I can be put in the same category as the hagiographical sense which imitated these Christological episodes. The first scene of the Saint Radegonde manuscript is in accordance with this plan. However, when particularity makes a difference, the markets moving away movement come with a gesture of her right hand with it thrown back outwards. The young princess thus expresses here a rejection of the wedding. So, a figurative topo proper to the theme of passion opens the cycle. This image conveys the idea of martyrdom and points the saint's sufferings. It also becomes the image of her breaking off with the world. Radegonde is not a martyr in a literal sense of the word, but stamping her as a martyr glorifies her, especially as her forced marriage and the suffering it imposes on her amounts to a torture. So this image relating Radegonde's forced marriage which in itself is just a mere biographic mishaps, turn into a scene of a moral confrontation and bears the significance of the symbol. In certain cases, rewriting or updating of the Vitae by Heide's men is a current and the recurrent phenomenon during the First Middle Ages. In Saint Benoit sur Loire, the monks rewrote the Vitae of their founder, Saint Benedict, in images so as to have the Vita as a commentary on their monastic order and above all to define their order from the Abbey Church. shielding the grave on the father of the Western monasticism, the church is the place where the order takes roots. The sculptural episodes on the Capitol shows Saint Benedict's life, such as it is transmitted by Gregory the Great in the second book of his dialogue. According to the author's statement, after he collected information about Benedict from abbeys from Monte Cassino, Subiaco, and Latran monastery, the Vita was written in 6th centuries. Actually, the congregation had found shelter there after the Lombard Ranscake Moncassin in 6th century too. I think the main cycle in Saint Benoit sur Loire is composed of 6 episodes. If we study the images of the 7 episodes of the cycle, it seems rather difficult to include in it the hypothetical capital of the fake miracle of the kitchen, as well as that of the oblates. We can see after when we describe together the sculpture. However, these 2 capitals are part of a tradition. Just as in the small transept, we are certain here to have the work of different artists, sculptors, who was asked to continue the figuration of the Saint Benoit's miracle. Eliane Vergnol's opinion is that these 2 capitals complete the clearly ordered cycle. As for Philippe Verdier wrote, even if they are reused, they belong to the same program. Nevertheless, they are different insofar as they show Benedict's miracle as not the miracle accomplished in Saint Benedict's name. That's the opinions of Philippe Verdier. We have the feeling, that the subject of this capital is far too different from that of the cycle in the 7 episodes. Saint Benedict is not longer presented as an author, neither is his personality exalted. The miracle of the Oblates and Florentius' death emphasizes God's mercy through Benedict's mediation. The saint is represented as a mediator, his personal power is no longer glorified. Maybe these 2 capitals complete the subjection of the cycle from the outside, but they definitively don't really integrate into the cycle. If the cycle consists of seven capitals, which means 7 narrative sequences, at last 27 of them in Saint Benedict's Vita could have been translated into images. 7 capital, but 27 episodes in Vita could have been translated into images. The numerous foundations of the saint, which are an important part of the legend, as well as his curing miracles, food miracles, the murdered attempts he escaped, the episode with his sister Scholastica, later Saint Scholastica, as well as his death, seems have been omitted. Actually, no figural anecdote of Saint Benedict's life was skipped in the sculpture cycle. However, we must be careful when we explain the cycle with the 7 capitals, as some capital completing the cycle may be missing, may have been destroyed. The opening sense of Benedict's cycle relates an episode of the saint's young years, and you see that on the picture. The incidents take place in 5th century in Affida, in the diocese of Palestrina, 2 miles away from Subiaco. After he changed his mind and gave up the idea to become educated in Rome, Benedict, who was 10 aged 14, decided to live there as an hermit. The text reads as follows: irregularly learning ignorant and willfully uneducated. Benedict was accompanied by a nurse and servant who, one day, borrowed a wheat sieve from neighborhoods. Gregory wrote, inadvertently left it on the table and felt unbroken in two parts. On the left-hand side of the Capitol, the sorry nurse gazed at the winnowing sieve broken into two distinct parts at her feet. On the right on the basket, Saint Benedict is praying, kneeling in front of an altar. In the open church, she looks up toward the sky. The sieve face on, resting next to him. Now, the text of the Vita is not that precise concerning the place where the miracle is about to take place. Through the legend relates just the young saint and his nurse were staying in St. Peter's Church. The importance of the place where the wonder occurs is significant. The prayer and its immediate result, the fixed sieve, are immediately set in the sanctuary. On the main side of the Capitol, the young saint is giving back his nurse in the intact sieve. God's blessing hand is coming out of the clothes above the teeth in a perfect condition. The woman, looking surprised, sees the sieve and slightly stands back to watch it. This particular episode emphasizes the importance of the prayer as the original cause of the miracle and which appears as the answer to an act of faith. Medieval scholars greatly insisted on the necessity of faith, the spiritual process which leads the prayer saints to the Saviour. They also underline the fact that the saints require a great deal of persuasion for their faithful wishes. Hagiographers and theologians keep reminding us of the narrow bond existing between prayer and miracles. The images of the Capitol express and emphasize this idea. The highest man, or the Creator, has set the accomplishment of this miracle in an ecclesial context, the building and the altar in front of the praying saint, in purpose. Piotr Skubiszewski, who studied the painting cycle of Vida Radegundis, noticed concerning the importance of the altar in the illumination of the manuscript that the altar was also the place where the behavior prayer converge. The German Pontifical states it unequivocally. The altar is a place where the beliefs requests are grounded, where anguishes disappear, where illness are cured, where promises and amendments are confirmed and encouraged. So, image tells us that if we want a prayer to be really efficient, it has to be carried out in a place of worship. The first miracle of the cycle is a miraculum ex reactione, which power is triggered by praying. This detail is particularly significant in a monastic context when the oratores appear on the scene. The first image sums up the saint's childhood, that of a boy chosen by God as soon as his early ages. The image shows him wholly lost in contemplation in the loneliness of the church. He has already renounced the world he held, I quote Gregory, in contempt as a father flower, and is taking his first step toward holiness, dedicating his life only to God. The episode of the Capitol evokes the Saint Pius youth, his exceptional virtue and his deep wisdom. His very precocious conversion, suggested by Gregory's text, is asserted by the young man's prayer in a church, which becomes the scene of the miracle he performs before giving up the world. If the saint was obviously chosen when he was only a child, the spiritual community he achieved, he he founded was also acknowledged by the god from its very beginning. The second capital evokes the young monk's secluded life. After the acknowledged god's presence next to him, Benedict intended to flee society and its owners. Affida's inhabitants had hung the thief about the gate of St. Peter's Church. So he secretly left Affida. He reaches the desert to withdraw in Subiaco, some 40 miles away from Rome, and there he lives the life of a recluse in a cave during 3 years. A monk called Roman, who lived in Saint Blaise Monastery under the rule of Abbaye de Fleury, helped the ascetic to sustain. And after the ordained him a monk, passed on the habit of holy life to him, the middle site of the capital represents Saint Blaise Monastery, which foundation lay on a rocky cliff. Roman's head appears at the window at the first level at the right corner of the basket. He is stretching out his arms with a rope with a small bell ending at its end. You can see? Yes. Yes? Yes. I put a blue line. As Benedict was located straight below the mountain, the tingling of the belt indicates the hermit that his body, earthly and heavenly food was about to come down and that he could come out and get it. The bread cenotive gives the hermit is the only connection into social life. However, the monk's body remains indissolubly linked to human food and to the order he seems to belong to, even before he actually gets integrated there. On the other hand, the choice of the soul food, which represents Benedict's only sociality, is a strong symbol since bread is considered as a Christ's body, his flesh, and as the Saviour himself. I am the bread of life. Whoever comes to me will never be hungry. Benedict's incorporation is a fundamental element in this episode. Saint Benedict, now tortured, is sitting on the rock and holding out one arm towards a huge demon who is standing in front of him. The devil, honored and threatening, has thrown something which has just eyed the bell. Gregory relates that the old enemy, jealous of one's charity and of the other's meal, watched for the day when the bread was going up. He threw a stone and broke the small bell. The bell is still moving, whereas Roman, surprised, waves it in vain. The choice of this episode is of the most important to understand the spiritual rising of the young saint. After his conversion, Benedict chose to follow the ascetic life of the father of the desert, just like Saint Anthony, who embodies his ideal. The young hermit has to follow different stages of purification, among which reclusion and fasting. In this image, the idea of a total seclusion is represented by the hermit's figure, which merges with the bones of the cave. He's literally become an integral part of it. His renouncement is so deep that he has become pure spirituality. The body cave of the saint totally personified in its extent the myth of the desert spread by ascetic literature in the 4th and 7th centuries, which is the most lasting creation of the late antiquity. According to Peter Brown's words, it's defined the crushing influence of the world that Christians had to free themselves off by drawing new frontiers. Here, the saint is protected from the world by the double protective frontier, the cal and the habit. He is censored. The particular image of seclusion, central part of the Vita, symbolizes the beginning of the spiritual progression Benedict has to follow so as to become the father of the monks. The spiritual orientation of the order is clearly expressed by the choice to represent this crucial stage of the life of its founder. Benedict totally devotes himself to the divine contemplation in his cave until the demon comes and disturbs the now exciting harmony between his soul and his body. The devil's intrusion in his retreat shows him it is time for him to abandon his secluded life. Structuring point of the legend. In a way, Benedict chose to be a cenobite rather than an hermit. So this image usually in the beginning of the saint's monastic life, as well as the beginnings of the spiritual purification required for the holy life for the monastic life. The recluse, by retreating in the desert, complete sums up his physical body. As the fight against the pain caused by fasting, he overcomes his body, subdues it, and thus frees himself from it. His soul is wholly turned to divine contemplation. Just as a Christ, Benedict faced the temptation of the desert. That will be the subject topic of the third episode of the cycle. The left-hand side of the basket is in very bad condition. It probably shows Benedict's investiture by Roman. The ceremony seems to be the most probable hypothesis, since the following capital shows Benedict, now a young man and in a spiritual ascension. Becoming a monk, establish a frontier with the world, a theme particularly relevant in the well-kept episode of the capital. The habit makes Benedict a new man, a man dead to the world, but risen from the dead, just as the Christ was. Moreover, the consecration of the founder saint implies the founding of the order, an order often defined and represented through the image of its founder. On the other hand, Benedict's tonsure, visible on the scene of the broken bell, clearly states his breaking up with the world. Thus, this contempt for the world mentioned by Gregory at the beginning of the Vita is represented by the image of the hermit on the fridge of the world, symbolically dead to accede, still alive, to the angelical world. It is worth remembering that different opinions can be adopted to represent this episode of the Vitae, including the saint's investiture of his reclusion in the cave.
There is nothing outside. No, il n'y a pas de toilette. There are no toilets.
It's sad. It's absolutely, yeah.
It's beautiful.
Yes, it's absolutely beautiful. Wow. I think it's too small for that.
In front of the sun at least.
Yeah, yes. Oh, thanks.
Some eclipse.
Are you like Moses?
This is no life.
You're so humble.
Learn from you.
In reli- Pardon. Benoit.
I'm like Moses.
In religious orders, the ceremony of investiture is a real rite of passage, which can, just as a christening, be divided in three parts. You know that. The parting rite, which allows the candidate to free himself from the initial group he belonged to. The in-between margin rite, in which the candidate, symbolically dead, no longer belongs to the first circle, but not yet to the second one. And at last, the aggregation rite, by which the new man is admitted as a full member of the second community. So, becoming a monk implies living one's old clothing, one's old previous skin, one's old previous life, then to go through to reach the stage of the symbolic nakedness, purification, to be at last allowed to put on a new skin, untarnished by any sort of direct contact with the first one. In a manuscript coming from Monte Cassino Abbey and dated back to the 1071, the episodes of the investiture and that of the cave were also present. This book was ordered by Desiderius, an abbot in Monte Cassino, and a great reformer of the Italian monastery founded by Saint Benedict in the 6th century. The Codex, a lectionary, contains 3 vitae, Benedict, Scholastica, and more. The life of Benedict, with its 66 illumination, is the most luxurious, sumptuous part of the manuscript. Folio 17 illustrates the first scene of the Benedict's life, just as they are related in the second book of Gregory's Dialogue. 6 scenes are painted, set out in 3 registers. In the upper register, the first scene shows Gregory, the author of the Vita, taking to Peter, his follower, according to the literary process, which is the framework of the story. The second scene fits with the first episode of Benedict's life. He evokes Benedict's short student life, which allows to insist on the contrast between the vanity of the word and the sense future conversion, renunciation, and opposites to the two notions. Besides, the square halo of the secular clericus obviously stands out against the circular numbers of the other characters represented. The Vita states, I quote, he dropped out his study of literature, left his father's house and belongings, and eager to please God and only God, he set out in search of the habit so as to live a holy life. So irregularly, lonely, and withily uneducated. So rejecting his studies, rejecting his blood father's material inheritance, and longing for a spiritual filiation with our Divine Father were the key words and presided at the precocious conversion. In the second register, the miracle of the thief brings to light Benedict's holiness. At the last, the third register of the folio opens the definite parting from the previous statement, Benedict's complete commitment to an ascetic life exclusively devoted to God. This transition is provided by the arrival of the new character, Roman, a monk who lives in Subiaco in a monastery ruled by Father Adeodoat. This monk is going to give Benedict the habit, the clothing for a holy life, that is to say, not the symbolic clothing of church or church religious order, but a symbolic textile, symbolized in his inner conversion, is breaking off with the world. In the illumination, Benedict does not undressed to reserve the clothing as normally required by Paulus' metaphor included in monastic liturgy, but put on one clothing over the other, one before the mortal part is absorbed by life. Dressed in this new skin, Benedict remained for 3 years unknown for men, undulate in a cave out of the way. Regularly, Romans threw him. It's the story. The first stage of Benedict's religious life has something in common with the hermit experience. In the manuscript, Benedict's conversion is visually evoked by a change of the colors. The shimmering triad, pink, red, green, shared by the first 4 scenes, yield to the strong, dark blue. The dark color, already present from time to time in the first 2 registers, appear now not only on Roman's habit and on Benedict's clothing underneath, but also on the cave. It is above all the will to part from the world. Actually, the young saint is firstly absorbed in a sort of pink covering, the clothing of life, then he is included in the second clothes, a non-textile one, a rocky one, the cave, with the rook undulation, as you can see. In Saint Benedict's life, putting the hermit does not mean the postulant is going to join or share the life of the particular community. The social aspect of his investiture is completely erased on behalf of his inner conversion, which can only take place if the saint is cut out from the world by a double present made of both textile and rock. In the narrative cycle of Benedict's legend, putting on the habit becomes a margin rite. It occurs after the rite of separation and before the rite of aggregation. This is to say Benedict's admission in Vicovaro community as an abbot. In the Vita, living in the cave for a time after he has put on the clothing of life is a necessary interlude which makes it possible to him to invent another life in the world opposite to the first he lived there, since it obeys other value, other strictness, other rules made up and meditated in the rocky solitudes of the place. In Saint Benoit sur Loire, the sense of the third capital represents the last stage of saints straightening in the desert. The last step of the young monk's purification, as he has to overcome his own temptation. Only after he becomes stronger through his experiment of the desert does he become qualified to be at the head of the religious community. On the left-hand side on the basket, the young monk is sitting on the rock whose rocky surface is suggested by embossing the stone. On the bridge on the basket, some sort of bird is flying down towards the saint in a vertical dive. Benedict combines blessing and words to express his denial. He exorcises the approaching bird. The Vita makes it clear that the black bird was annoying, teasing his face, so that the holy man could have taken it in his hand if he had intended to. He crossed him and the bird went away. Actually, the bird incarnates the memory of a young woman he knew when he was a student in Rome. A memory he dismissed from his mind. Then the devil, present to the eyes of his soul, the image of the young lady to tempt him. On the middle of the capital, the devil is dragging a young girl towards the saint, retreated in his den. The tempter, whose head is topped by two monkey hairs, naked and hairy, is in fact manipulating a now passive woman, a mere toy in a devil's hand. But even if she is not actually exercising her seduction, she is clearly, just because of her sex, the devil's natural instrument. Yes. As written in Gregory's record, her mere presence, even her mere memory, are a source of temptation. This is the reason why the monks must be permanently careful about the weak sex, about the gate to the devils. It is not my formula. If the anachorete proved able to get rid of the memory symbolized by the bird, the oniric vision of the young woman makes her evocation more real. According to the legend, he remembered her beauty, which set such a fire in the mind of God's servant when he remembered this beauty that was enabled to refrain this burning love in his heart. He almost decided to leave the desert, defeated by a pleasurable sensation. On the basket, if the tempter is passive, her beauty is suggested by her long hair, a natural ornament which raises man's desire. Benedict was nearly defeated by the violent temptation of the flesh. This is the reason why, on the right hand side of the Capitol, the saint is about to roll his body in the thorn bush. Actually, his left leg is already in the squashing bush. God's blessing hand is coming out of the clouds above the hermit. Gregory explained that, in fact, God's grace is coming to his rescue just as he was about to surrender to his desire. He subtly describes the conflict and then the soothing of the saint's pain. He came out, the thorn bush, only injured all over his body, but the wounds in his flesh were an outlet for the wounds of his soul. As he burns his flesh through a salutary punishment, he put out the irrelevant inner fire. He defeats sin as he swapped fire. As he battered his body, Benedict stifles the flames of desire in his soul, so what, according to Gregory's word, the temptation of the flesh was so subdued in him that he never felt anything similar again. We understood why. A temptation followed by the mortification to fire is this insatiable pruritus, you understand? Prurit, ça gratte.
You understand? Scratching.
Scratching, yes. The desire is assimilated to prurit. It's
Enzymatic reaction.
yes, eczematic reaction. Yes. And this formula is of Bishop Marbot of Rennes. Mm-hmm. Yes, around the end of the 11th century. This temptation and mortification are a common leitmotif in Vitae. But Paradoxically, such a blown representation of a contrition is extremely rare in hagiographical images in a French monument. However, this image is completely in accordance with the sexual psychology of the time. Father Firmin, who died at the end of the 11th century, burns his arm with a firebrand to fight the desire he felt for a courtesan. Géraud of Salles lies down naked on glowing embers to repel a woman of easy virtues as he invites her to join him. A great invitation, no? This type of anecdotes aims at illustrating the inner conflict of the man devoted to a permanent fight against himself, against his body. If all Christians are involved in this moral conflict, the battle is a core of monks concerned for they have to triumph over their impulsion and turn towards some sort of serenity in order to concentrate on God's contemplation. So, the theme of the saint's inner fight is indissociable from the saint's spiritual essence. The saints picturing Benedict's temptation perfectly symbolize human duality in a perspective of total duality, body and mind, an idea cherished by St. Paul. The saint appears there as an accessible model for the monks, since their founder's father is represented as the prey to his demons, as the prey to his demons. This model proves himself close to the weak-willed saint as he experiences the temptation of the body. Continence was actually one of the major preoccupations in monasteries, since purity was what allowed a body to be the most appropriate means to receive God's inspiration. Now, monastic texts and vitae show how the consciousness of the fragility of this state of purity and abstinence is obvious, whereas monks are compelled to a continuous vigilance to subdue their body. Benedict emerged the winner of the test of the temptation as a triumphant athlete, prompted by God's strength. This episode, just as the previous one, inaugurates the beginning of the saint's monastic life, and as we already stressed, the two of them are indissociable from the spiritual essence. Here, Max Miller said, the stage of purification and unrelenting renouncement aimed at preparing the anchored for his mission as a charismatic master. After the spiritual march in the desert, securing his authority, Benedict can at last become a spiritual father. The order built itself on the initiatory way that every monk has to follow to purify himself. He has to inflict himself pains so as to gain the future glory of his body, which reserved a part of the spiritual body that all Christians should receive when the just rise from the dead. The three next capitals draw a portrait of the spiritual father of the founder abbot. The fourth episode stages a miracle that led more, through Saint Benedict, to rescue young Placide from drowning. According to the Vitae, after he founded 12 monasteries, Saint Benedict settled in one of them in Saint Clement. As he was drawing water from one of Nero's lakes, Placide fell down and was carried away within arrow range by the stream. Benedict thought he was in his cell as the feeling of what was happening. what was happening. In accordance with the Vita, the first scene pictures a saint in his cell who suddenly stops reading. He has more cold and bids him to go and rescue Placide. The monk whose upper body faces Benedict, as they are talking, has his leg turned toward the following scene. Morse figure acts as a transition and perpetuates the narration between the two episodes of the miracle. The second scene sums up several stages of the story and allows to apprehend it as a whole. The boy's fall, the reason of his fall, his miraculous rescue, the conclusion of the miracle, and the episode of the vision of the angel. Gregory described the scene as follows. He, more, thinks he is moving on the ground, whereas he is running on the water. He grabs the child by his hair and, still running at a full speed, he comes back. Having reached the bank, he regains consciousness and, looking behind him, he can see that he has definitely run on the water. The conceptor of image has a real sense of history and narration. The setting of the scene and the action taking place there are perfectly clear. The young monk who was drawing water has just fallen. He is holding his pail in his hand. The uncoordinated movement of his leg symbolize his fall. More, walking on the water, seizes his hair under his tonsure and draws him back his left wrist. In the Vita, the miracle leads to be a conflict of humility, alluded to by the presence of the hood. Alors, in a French text, mélote, mais je n'ai pas trouvé de traduction en anglais. It's a hood, I think. Mélote. It's a monastic term for a monastic hood. On the capital. Yeah. An angel is... Comment?
We are trying to find the Czech word. Et c'est en fait comme un capuchon.
C'est un capuchon et qui est vraiment utilisé au moment des rituels, et notamment des rituels d'initiation.
Kapuce, která se používá během iniciačních rituálů. So a liturgical one.
Yeah. On the capital, an angel is coming out of the clouds above the Saviour and the saved boy, and he offers Benedict's hood. It is the textile in his angel's hands. The saint thought the miracle was due to his disciples' Morse absolute obedience, whereas more so the supernatural power of the saint in the wonder. Gregory is right. In this friendly debate of humility, the saved boy became the referee. He said, when I came out of the water, I saw the abbot's hood, and I saw him dragging me out the water. Benedict is definitely the author of the miracle, but the monk's obedience to his abbot allowed its accomplishment. In his rescue, Placide admits the involvement of his spiritual father. Now, the appearance of Benedict's hood during the rescue reminds us of the Holy Spirit coming down like a dove on Jesus, newly christened. Maximilien Mahler suggests the following explanation. The location of the scene on the bank of the Jordan opens new prospect going from the Christ christening to a Christian christening ceremony and finally to a monk's investiture, which in monastic tradition equals a second christening. The abbot's part is to welcome the young monk on his investiture day, considered as a second christening, and to give him a second birth by covering him with the clothing of the holy life and a hood. Paul Diacre reminds us that on the particular day, the novice's head was covered with a hood, which was folded back a week later because the hood evokes the christening ceremony. The monk symbolically dies to the world and to put on the new skin, to be born again to the real life, the life devoted to God. On the other hand, Placide is a young monk, nearly a child. Benedict, his abbot, his father, made him take the habit and thus broke the boy's blood ties. The clothing asserts the relationship between the monk and God and included this relationship in the spiritual tie with the abbot, who is representative of the community where he is going to spend his life. Thus, the monk's submission to the Father is total, as the Father himself obeys God to him in on the way to renunciation. Because of theological commentary contained in this episode, it is significant to find it in a cycle. Thus, Placide is rescued from drawing songs to his monastic consecration, symbolized by the hood, just as the neophyte is redeemed from the spiritual death and clearly of his sins when he comes out of the water of baptism. This image illustrates the monk's symbolic death and his resurrection, the miracle, when he takes his vows. The symbolic sacrifice of the boy when he becomes a monk is symbolized by his fall and his drowning. The sense of miracle combines several notions that set up the order: the abbot's authority, the spiritual relationship, monk's obedience as a source of salvation, and the ties that links every monk to his abbot, who is the representative of the community where he will spend his life. Moreover, the image suggests the idea of the missionary transmission. Peter, who the walk on the water allude to, hands down to Benedict, who himself hands down to more, who will be sanctified later, is already hallowed in the images. Actually, more appears as Benedict's direct follower, the one who came over to God to transmit the master's teaching. The image thus becomes the emblem of the constitution and the timelessness of the order. Okay? C'est bon? Okay. The fifth capital represents the saint's meeting with Totila, the king of gods. One of the main sides of the basket, the abbot holding his crook, is standing in front of the cleaning king. Benedict's influence on the king is suggested by his taking the king's wrist in his hand. According to the Vita, the king had tried to deceive the saint and put his perspicacity to the test. He has dressed one of his scribes, Rigaud, as a king, as himself, in fact, in front of the abbot. Guided by God, the latter had a presentiment of trickery and had denounced it. Totila, when learning about the wonder, went to bow down in front of the abbot, who sat on the abbot throne. Benedict asked by 3 times to king to raise, then, condescending to advance towards the prostrated king and raising him, he reproached him his action and prophesied. On the Capitol, the creator of image made use of this passage of the Vita, where the saint invites the king to rise to put his superiority forward. The scene undoubtedly echo that of homage read during which a vassal recommends himself to its suzerain. The temporal power pays here homage to the spiritual power. On the right face of the basket, the royal suite, the men of the royal suite attends this ritual. The character nearest to Totila is probably Rigaud, still dressed in the royal robes. Behind the first person, convinced of the holiness of the abbot, he expresses his approval. The counts, Wulfried, Wuld, Ruderick, and Blindin follow him. The second one repeats in another manner the king's gesture, his right hand over his head and his other hand on the pommel of his sword. He expresses his loyalty and his total submission to Benedict. The attitude of the simple soldier in their coat of mail, who constitute the end of the royal escort, shows the same respect to the saint. If Benedict's authority no longer has to be justified within the boundary of the monastery, the image evokes his growing influence in the world and his recognition by the important character of this time. The saint's influence thus spread beyond the wall of the abbey and allow him to interfere in the world. Besides, the creator of the cycle took care to age Benedict's feature as he becomes older. After the agitation of his youth, and the necessary purification, the abbot, now in full maturity, acquired a broad spiritual influence. The figure of the founding father incarnates the order itself. Perhaps the choice of this narrative sequences in cycle suggests the mission of guide that the Benedictine claims they deserve in the world. Secluded but open to the world, they are eager to play a fundamental part in its organization. The representation of Benedict's empty oratory on the left side of the basket proves the contemplative life of the monks. We can see the Holy Scripture on the table, and their renouncement. Thus, after the concept which structure the order, we can see its place and its function in society. The sixth capital tells about the delivery of the peasant captured by Aryan god Zala. On the left side, under an arcade, Benedict is holding the Bible, opened on his knees. He seems to immerse himself in the text and holds the previously read sheet. The saint devotes himself. Je sais, j'ai pas un très bon accent. J'ai failli dire page. Je me suis dit, est-ce que je vais tenter? Mais j'aurais pas dû. Non, mais c'est plutôt drôle. Hein. J'ai du mal à prononcer aussi le mot mouton. Oui, bah oui, mais par moment ça. The saint devotes himself to the daily mental activity of the monks. The Lectio Divina, which was supposed to lead to an immersion phenomenon, the Ruminatio. He is looking ahead with a man, Zala, dressed in a coat of mail, a sword at his side. He is bowing down at his feet. Hands united, head riser, he seems to touch the abbot's toes with fingertips. The heretic Arian, according to Gregory's words, has a position of sinner, of a penitent who, in contact with the relics, claims the intercession of the saint. The gesture of supplication also reminds of the pilgrim's attitude from in front of reliquary or relics. Arian wishes Benedict's forgiveness, and he recommends himself to the saint so as to ensure his salvation. By his position, the Arian provides the transition between this scene and the next one. On the main side of the basket, a peasant, a man with a moustache, dressed in a short tunic, is holding up his arm, thus displaying his broken leg that were fastening his wrist. His attitude is similar to the Aran's praying attitude. On the right side of the basket, Zala's horse, entirely armed, is turning its back to the saint. This orientation indicates that Zala, whose shade is hanging from the tree, is to disappear from the scene. According to Gregory, the Arian heretic, persecutor of the Christian, had captured a peasant to extort his belongings. He tortured him so much that the poor fellow, overcome by pain, declared that he had given Benedict, as a servant of God, all of his belongings. As long as the persecutor will believe in this story, his cradle would be on hold, and it would be a few hours' deferment for the poor fellow. Zala tied up the man's arm and made the peasant lead him to the monastery, where they found Benedict reading at the gate. The god ordered the abbot to give him what he owed him. Hearing this word, the man of God raised his eyes from his reading. He noticed the barbarian, and the peasant is a holding prisoner. When Benedict's eye fall on the arm of the peasant, the links tightening him untie so quickly that no human hand could have done in its short little time. Witnessing such a wonder and such a power, Zala, shaking, threw himself to the ground, bending his stiff and cruel neck in front of the man of God. On this capital, the monk wins a spiritual fight, opposing him to the knight, bowed down at his feet. The creator of image repeats the message contained in the previous episode. The superiority of spiritual weapon on a terrestrial weapon, embodied by this noble warrior. Prayer and liturgical offices were indeed compared to the spiritual weapons. The monks felt committed in the celestial militia. They were the Christ soldier delivering a fierce spiritual battle. The majority of them, coming from the military aristocracy, were educated or at last marked by the chivalrous value and aggressiveness. As usual, the concept of the cycle admirably synthesized the account in his miraculous conclusion. The peasant links have just broken. The god, in front of the power of the saint, threw himself to his feet, beat in his mercy. One of the topics of these images is to show Benedict's power and the divine force which emanate from him. Besides, Gregory explains to his disciple. Here we are Peter. It is just as I say, those who serve God more assiduously can something accomplish wonder with power. Is the scene of the miracle of the sieve insist on the prayer by which the miracle took place? At the time of this incident, Gregory shows that miracle can also be the fruit of the sense power. The Creator thus has managed to skillfully prove it through the narrative forces of the image by the gesture of the mid-orant, mid-victorious peasant and by the absence of any divine sign. The impassivity of the saint who appear in full majesty, the representation of the two men praying, one begging, the other praising Benedict, and the supernatural force of the wonder evoke the virtues that radiate from the relic of the saints. Zala embodied recovered humility, that of the now forgiven penitent. The decorate initial in Book 11, in Moralia in Job, pictures a monk, a Cistercian, who symbolize humility, prostrated at the feet of an angel who carries the book in an altitude similar to Zala's. After the recognition of the saint's authority in the world, this episode illustrates its concrete and direct influence in the world. However, the way Benedict is represented and the God's position lets us wonder about a possible allusion to the founder's relic kept in the abbey. Benedict's influence of the world keeps on the spreading thanks to the order is founded and thanks to his community, guardian of this grave, irradiating his virtues. The miracle of the peasant child's resurrection is carved on the several capitol. Saint Benedict, followed by two younger monks, goes back to the monastery after farm work. The abbot makes a gesture of acceptance towards a desperate peasant. With his right hand, the man indicates the lifeless naked body of his child laying on the ground outside the gate of the monastery. He begs the holy abbot to intervene so that his boy is delivered from death. The unfortunate father is used as a connection with the second cycle of the second episode of the second cycle of the episode. Benedict is kneeling, praying near the young dead body. God's blessing hands comes out of the clothes. Thus, the miracle can be achieved. The Creator did not choose to represent the miracle in itself, namely the child returning to life, but the circumstances which precede it. Pictured on the principal side of the basket, the prior determines the realization of the exceptional wonder which allowed to compare the saint to apostles. Thus, the conceptor, after having carved a miracle, achieved in potestate by the sole power of the eyes, gathered the most extraordinary wonder carried out ex oratione. Thus, we are reminded that only an act of faith allows to perform the largest of miracles. No other episode could have come in conclusion in the cycle, since this one concentrates several elements which are constitutive of the figure of the founding father, and these several elements become inherent to the order. In the account of this wonder, Benedict apologized, thinking that such miracles are only the facts of the apostle, or such miracles are kept to the apostles. His humility, clearly expressed in the text, is suggested in the images by the scene in which, after accomplishing his miracle, he is coming back from his farm work. The holy abbot regards himself as a simple monk, and for this reason, he takes part in a daily manual work of the community. However, the man of God, who wishes to be only one brother among the others, is assimilated by the child's resurrection to an apostle. According to Maximilian Mahler, this miracle is very similar to one in the Saint Martin's Vita by Sulpice Sévère. For the hagiographical, the difference of transcendence between an apostle and the simple monks could be measured by the apostle's power to bring someone back to life. Even more, as in the case of Martin, a bishop and consequently one of the apostles' successors, but also a wonder worker, the assimilation with the apostles was easy. According to Gregory, without being an apostle, Benedict, or a bishop, Benedict, has a similar power. In the legend, the miracle is obtained by prayer and the contact of the miracle worker's body with the child's body. Yet, the Creator does not retain this position. It's a miracle of contact. Yet, the Creator does not retain this position, even though it is very explicit in Gregory's text, and the symbolic aspect of it is very strong. This gesture, omitted in Saint Benoit Abbey Church, was particularly well translated by the creator of Illuminate Cycle of the manuscript of Monte Cassino. I haven't this image. The image of the manuscript seems to focus on the power of monastic prayer, following the example of Haley's prayer, whereas Saint Benoit's sculpture shows the Benedict power as a wonder worker. The nature of miracle allows the assimilation of the founding father to an apostle. Thus, this prestige flashes back on his order. The order thus finds its origin on Benedict's apostolicity, is marked more than any other of the seal of holiness. The reading of life of the founder that the community of Saint Benoit delivers is revealing in the way it sees itself in the Benedictine order in general. Gregory insists enormously in his account on the many foundations of the saint which symbolize the extension of the order. However, it is not surprising that there is no allusion to it in the Abbey Church of Saint Benoit. The monks of Saint Benoit did not have any interest in recalling in their church the foundation of Monte Cassino or other Italian monasteries. The Monte Cassino, in addition, claimed the body of the abbot, a claim legitimated by its foundation by the saint. The Saint Benoit monks did not choose to introduce Benedict as an abbot builder, since their monastery had not been born from his action. They thus chose to move away from the practical or material aspect of the life of the order's founder and focused their interest in the more spiritual definition. They define their community and voluntarily place themselves beyond history. The hagiographic image specifies the identity of the order that nourishes from the spirituality of the saint, foundation stone in the broadest sense of the term, present in the tomb under the sanctuary. The image of the cycle excites the monastic life through the personality of the saint. Each miracle carried out focuses on its power, but all are treated so as to show that the true way is the way of God, and that only the monastic way makes it fully accessible. The Holy Abbot is the essential spiritual guide, the only one to know the true life, that of Christ. The cycle seems conceived as a kind of spiritual whose Saint Benoit community can stand as guarantor. The community is the legitimate custodian since it shelters the tomb of the founder. The relics are not only the cement of Saint Benoit's community, but also of the order in general. For the monk of Fleury, their funerary abbey is the place of the universal memory of the Benedictine order. The community thinks of itself as the center of the spirituality of the order, of which is it the cornerstone.
We should make a break. What time is it?
11h30.
On fait une petite pause. Tu veux qu'on...
If you want.
Yeah, I think we need a bit rest, a bit of oxygen also.
Okay.
So let's make 10 minutes of break.
Okay. Okay.
And I have some questions, but we will discuss the
Okay.
question at the end.
t'en prie.
Okay, I think we can push you and we will have just a little small part now with Cécile and then we can discuss because I'm really like interested and we can also pursue partial discussion this afternoon to the church because we saw now chapters and we have also to contextualize them to see them into the space and really to think about visibility, invisibility, point of view and so on. So where this complex and intellectual narrations was produced or not. That's in general. You're already feeling okay. Great. So let's go to
the conclusion.
And then discuss it.
The principal cycle of the Father of the Monks starts with a miracle of the sieve, which also opens the legend and ends with the last miracle of the saint, the resurrection of the peasant's child. The episode of the sieve, the meeting of the saint with Totila, the resurrection of the child, and the rescue of Placide are located under the beams of the vault of the sanctuary, which overhung the crypt where Benedict's tomb was. All these miracles are carved, sculptured in the sanctuary, which is also the domus of the saint. The church and its crypt are built around the relics of the saints, whose proximity involved, in fact, the constitution of the kind of sacralized zone in the shape of a series of concentric circles whose sacredness grew from the periphery toward the center. The images of miracles surround this sacralized zone to reinforce it. Like the image of the family tree of the orders, you know these images? No, it's the body of the like GC's trees, the body of the fondator with in this cheese, yes, in the body, the trees grew up with a successor. It's a very comparable with the GC's tree. Like the image of the family trees of the orders that takes root in the body of the saint. The tomb is supporting stone of the abbey. Thanks to him, the order grows in the power of its founder by continuing the mission inherited from Benedict. The architecture, as the sculptures, carries its mark. At the entrance of the sanctuaries, reliquary, it's a very sanctuary reliquary, opening of the first span of the nave, two capitals illustrate the spiritual progression and the renouncement, monastic grace per excellence, by excellence. Through the hermetic experiment of Benedict in the cave of Subiaco and the overcame temptation of the flesh. The community of Fleury therefore structures itself around its sanctified body, whose purity does not have to be shown anymore. The production of the worship of the relics passes by instrumentalization of the sanctuary, which, thanks to the tomb of the saint, makes the abbey the founding stone of the Benedictine order. The creator of the images, besides, took care to draw aside from the cycle all the episodes which allude to the founding activity of the Father of the Monks, whose Fleury, unlike Monte Cassino, could not take over. Contrary to the Italian abbey, the Saint Benoit community did not have the possibility of betting on the direction heritage of the saint. This is why, through the installation of the abbey and its images, he seeks to incarnate the image of the order and not its histories. Its history.
Thank you. Okay, so we should start discussion. For me, what's really interesting is now that we are in this zone of the church which is mainly inaccessible to anyone else than the monks. So you have the presence of a sort of intellectual space where only initiated person, and it's interesting because Cécile taught a lot about the initiation, about the question of becoming a monk. It means practically to leave one zone to enter into the other zone, which is quite interesting because the liminality is one of the crucial concepts which we are discussing in those days, and now we are adding a second level of liminality. We were speaking about the place for the pilgrims, but now we are like speaking about the space for, or the distinction, the spatial distinction between laity and, let's say, monasticity, between those two spaces. And so you have the enclosure which stops like the entrance to this sacral space. And what's interesting in Saint Benoit, you already saw it, I hope everybody already went to the crypt with the relics of Saint Benoit, is that you have the crypt and you have the ambulatory, but the access to the ambulatory is not open to everybody because you have the access to the crypt. So in a it's a very different situation than what we saw in Conques or in all the other monastic and pilgrimage churches we met until now, which was that the ambulation is all around the altars, so like in Clermont for example, so that the chapters are destined to the persons ambulating all around. Now we are into the opposite situation. We are in a closed space with the chapters directed only to the intellectual users. So that's for me like really the really interesting point. And then my really question is that we have those three parts of each like chapter, and for me the really curious aspect is the decision to put one scene. Why they decided to put this selection of scenes on the visible side? Because I would say that not all, but the main part of the most important scenes in terms of space are not the main scenes in terms of content, or at least it seems to me that it's the, let's say, secondary level of importance, if you understand me. I would put, for example, if I would be the conceptor or the center, always Benedict performing the miracle. So once you have the monastery in the middle, second time you have like, it's here, the monastery, and the miracle and the devil is like outside. Then we have the woman with the devil. So the miracle seems to be like put outside, still this not also invisible. And then we have the also that's not the central scene. The central scene is in the previous one. With this one like Daniel between the lions, but it's just a peasant. So why this really strange like construction of the hierarchy into the intersacral space? So I don't know if you have any idea why they or how to explain this so strange decision. If you want, you can also answer in French and I can translate it.
Ok. Je pense en réalité que les chapiteaux sont une très belle construction intellectuelle, enfin la sculpture, les images sur chapiteaux sont une très belle construction intellectuelle, mais c'est quand même l'élément le plus mal approprié pour recevoir des images. Enfin, c'est tout de même assez... Voilà, on raconte une image sur quelque chose qui est trapézoïdal, qui est collé contre un mur, donc on ne peut pas forcément faire le tour, qui est très haut, qu'on ne peut pas forcément voir. Et j'ai l'impression qu'en réalité, la question du récepteur n'importe pas du tout. Tout comme quand on va enluminer un magnifique livre dont on sait qu'il n'est jamais ouvert.
So, do you understand? The idea is that it's a nice intellectual construction in a less appropriated space to be seen, because it's in the upper part of the church, trapezoidal form, the narration is almost unreadable, and Cécile compares it to the manuscript, which is conceived to be never opened and still beautifully like illuminated. So this kind of pole vents, let's say, invisibility of the objects. So you think it's really mainly like intellectual stuff, but there is no appropriate use.
Yes, et je pense aussi que dans ce cas de figure, il y a une importance à toujours mettre Benoît comme une espèce d'image à part. C'est-à-dire qu'il est rarement associé à l'événement. Hein, et il est une espèce de majesté permanente, hein, quasiment tout le temps. Et il n'est jamais en prise directe, en tout cas dans la construction de l'image, en prise directe avec l'événement qui est en train de se produire. Et je pense qu'il y a l'idée d'une réclusion. C'est-à-dire que même si on le montre en prise avec l'extérieur, il est complètement mort au monde. Il est agissant, et c'est parce qu'il est mort au monde qu'il est agissant. Tu vois ce que je veux dire ? C'est vraiment une image quasiment figée. Si, il vieillit, c'est ce qu'on lui accorde dans le... Il vieillit, donc on montre l'idée d'une chronologie, hein, puisqu'il est représenté... Voilà, ici, il est représenté beaucoup plus vieux qu'il ne l'est. On le voit bien mieux quand on est dans l'église, mais il est représenté plus vieux, donc il y a quand même l'idée d'une chronologie, mais sauf dans de très rares séquences visuelles, il est toujours retiré du monde. C'est une force agissante qui est retirée du monde. Et c'est en ça que c'est extraordinaire, parce que finalement, ça revient au pouvoir des reliques.
No, it is the invisibility of his presence. He is invisible almost the main part of the time, because he's always on the lateral side, like a majesty, so sitting. And it can be read as the fact that he's outside of this world. He's acting, don't being present as a living person. The only stuff which is like happening with him, that he's becoming old with the bird, but it's like a sort of translation into the images of the power of the relics. You have the relics which are invisible but incredibly powerful. So this sort of tension in film, which we discussed with Saint Johann a lot, between the visibility of the relic, which is unexisting, and the huge power of the same relic.
Et il est aussi très souvent, à quelques exceptions près, quand il est en contact avec le roi, hein, où là il est face à face, mais il est toujours aussi dans sa cellule, dans une attitude qui est purement monastique. Et ça aussi, c'est pour les moines, il y a les reliques bien sûr, mais il y a aussi les moines, cette espèce il y a un historien qui compare les monastères du XIe à des usines à prière, mais c'est ça, enfin, c'est réellement ça, ce qu'est la vie monastique. Hein, et c'est aussi répété à chaque fois que le saint est figuré sur les chapiteaux. C'est-à-dire que voilà, il est dans sa cellule avec les écritures et il médite, il rumine, etc. Ou alors il est très jeune devant un autel.
There's also the fact that he's always into his cell praying. And one historian spoke about monasteries as factories for praying into the 11th century. So really the idea to have on the important place still always present the fact that the monk, except for the occasion when he meets the king, that his like main occupation is to stay and to pray into the cell or when he's very young in front of the altar. So this sort of duality between his action, which is outside of his body, and his body who is into the cell praying. So relics and monastic life are the two main topics.
Dont la dimension manuelle de cette vie monastique est rappelée sur un chapiteau. C'est celui-ci, là, où il revient avec les autres moines des champs, du travail agricole.
And there is also this reminding of the monastic life in terms of working, because Benedict is coming back from the work into the countrysides. So that's something like really important. Okay.
I also have just one question, because maybe
no, you speak English.
Visually, it's also interesting to have let's say not the least important part, but the most mysterious part of the scene in the front, and the explanation on the side, because you will maybe stop in front of the image, asking yourself what is it, and then you have to turn around.
Yeah,
oui.
That's
so
nice
from
observation.
a visual point of view. It's maybe not the most obvious.
Oui, c'est les images les plus frappantes, c'est-à-dire qui sont sur la face centrale sur la face centrale du chapiteau. Je suis d'accord avec vous. Et c'est des images qui sont marquantes, parce que c'est le démon qui présente une femme, et cette femme, elle est présentée comme ça, en fait, puisque Benoît est sur les deux côtés latéraux. Donc effectivement, ce qu'on voit dans la partie qui n'est pas le sanctuaire, mais on voit le démon qui présente une femme. Voilà. Et là aussi, je pense qu'il y a un jeu il y a un jeu de surprise et sur les zones les différentes zones et la graduation, c'est-à-dire que cette image-là, voilà, elle n'est pas placée par hasard à cet endroit précis, même si, il faut faire attention parce que ça a pu être démonté, hein, c'est pas très très clair ce qui se passe dans la partie.
I know also. Well, no, I was thinking about also the Adrian's question because for me the interesting aspect, you already discussed it a bit because of the portal of Gong, is the notion of the action of the image who push you to do something. So on one hand the image is barely readable and complicated because it's there. On the other hand, if you are capable to catch the attention of the viewer will approach and try to read and analyze and understand the object. And that's for me quite interesting because it means that we are really playing with the viewer in order to push him to interact with the object. So it's in certain sense what you are trying to do with I don't know, some appealing scenes into the videos. You start with something appealing in order to push the viewer to pursue, to follow you into the effort of analyzing. And it's right that you start with something which is so strange. But what's also interesting for me, for example, in the liberation of the good peasant, is that also the scenes which are on the main part, in this case it's really for me evident, are also using a composition which seems to be derived from more ancient iconographies like Daniel between the lions here. So you have a sort of, let's say, usual image in sense of composition with unusual details who attract you to the image. You start with something which you know very well, and then you approach to something invisible. Because with Anichka we were discussing, and Pavel, the notion of, we already discussed it also, the notion of supermarket. In each supermarket now you have things which are trying to get you in confidence. So you are feeling yourself in the right place, and then at the same time you are always lost because they are changing the order. And this tension between something you know and the space where you are lost attract your attention. So in the capitalistic world the idea is to spend money, but here is the idea to spend time with the chapters, although they are barely visible and complicated to be analyzed.
Oui, je pense que les images valent pour elles-mêmes, c'est-à-dire que la notion de récepteur n'est pas importante, très peu, elle est secondaire. Ça dépend du type d'image, parce qu'évidemment, si tu parles des images sculptées sur les tympans, là forcément, c'est fait pour, c'est fait pour frapper, voire pour écraser, comme à Beaulieu le spectateur, enfin celui qui voit. En plus, on en a une vision très affadie parce qu'on a perdu les peintures, donc il faut aussi imaginer que le jeu sur les contrastes de couleurs plus le doré, ça devait être quand même assez impressionnant. Et je pense qu'effectivement il y avait une hiérarchie dans les motifs, c'est-à-dire que clairement le Christ juge de conque, il interpelle le regard forcément, c'est forcément un motif que l'on va regarder. Et ce que je ne vous ai pas dit hier, c'est que la justice de l'abbé se déroulait sous le tympan, c'est-à-dire qu'en plus il y avait une mise en abîme. Donc ça prenait sans doute un relief encore plus violent ou plus fort, parce qu'il y avait cette mise en abîme aussi avec...
Okay, the important aspect one is that there is of course also a hierarchy between, let's say, the chapters and tympanons, which are of course much more visible, and we, like in Beaulieu the crisis, we falling down on the viewer. And there's also the question of the colors, of course, which on the tympanon can be much more expressive and powerful. And then of course an aspect which you didn't mention yesterday, which is crucial, that the justice of the abbot was performed in front of the portal himself. So the abbot was judging, having the Christ on his back, the Christ judge. So there is this sort of tension which maybe add another level of the, let's say, theatrality of this object, which was activated by something which was not a liturgical aspect, but was really a real life aspect, which was explained by the portal himself. That's something which is also interesting.
Il y a évidemment les effets qui sont produits, de toute façon qui étaient voulus. Et puis, après on sait que c'est de l'exégèse visuelle, donc c'est des images qui ne sont pas univoques. Il faut du temps, ça nécessite une rumination, enfin on voit bien qu'elles sont construites exactement de la manière de l'exégèse, enfin c'est exactement les mêmes mécanismes intellectuels que ceux qui président à l'exégèse textuelle. Donc forcément, ça nécessite un arrêt. Ce sont des images qui sont faites pour
Now there's also the concept of ruminatio, which is one of the concepts, ruminatio is the word used for the cow. The cow, when she's eating the grass, she like have the grass a bit into the mouth before to send it to the first stomach. So there's the word used in Latin in order to understand the holy scriptures and the holy lives of saints and all the holy texts. You have like to spend time with them. So, and in a certain sense, what is happening here in the chapter is quite similar proceeding. You need to spend time with the objects and the meaning of them in order to understand. So ruminare. So that's something.
But if they were intended for the monks, which were the ones who can actually see the capitals, the monks were, I would say, aware of all the episodes from the Vita. They know the miraculous stories, so it's not like guessing the scene because they know it. Yeah, and that's why maybe the figure of the Benedict it's on the sides because they knew the Benedict it's in every scene and the scene itself is more.
Oui. Et après, je pense qu'il y a aussi pour ces images qui sont dans des... Vous avez raison, hein, mais dans ces basiliques, on va dire, funéraires ou reliquaires, il y a l'idée que ces images légitiment aussi et historisent la présence des reliques. C'est-à-dire qu'elles jouent la même fonction que les images sur les reliquaires. C'est-à-dire qu'elles sont là pour évoquer le contenu. Voilà. C'est-à-dire que...
So that also the function of those images is not only like the narrative one, but it's also a legitimacy one, because in those basilicas reliquaries, they are like underlying the presence of the relics in themselves, which is also something. But I would also say that you are right. So I would say only partially, because you are like thinking of the monastic life from a very modern point of view, which means few monks who are here, stable here and living here. But if we imagine the medieval monasticism, on one hand we are speaking about hundreds of persons,
Yeah, but if you're
on the other hand we are like speaking about a lot of monks circulating. We will see tomorrow with the Fleury book, but with an evidence, Saint Benoit is a center, a huge center where persons, monks and priests are arriving from all around Europe. So they were like arriving here. I mean, you have several level of users. Of course, you are on one hand a monk here from 20 years, you will even not remark them. You are a novice who just entered to space and who could be like educated with the images. You are a guest. You went from Paris, but from Rome also, and you are like coming here because of the relics of Benoit, Benedict, and you have the images. And then you have also to imagine that you are a priest pilgrim. Because you didn't discuss it enough, but they were priest pilgrims. And you are priest pilgrims, it means that you are allowed to enter the sacral space. And you are arrived as a pilgrim to Saint Benoit, being priest, and you are introduced in this space. So all those layers of kind of viewer, we have always imagined something much more complex.
Yeah, I think this is much more. This is like underlined by the choose of these scenes because we have the rescue of the monk from the water, which was, as you said, like the initial ritual for the incoming monks, and then we have the was the one praying in the same position as the pilgrims, and so on. So there are like all these etaps of those who can see it and who can meditate the objects, like for not for only the monks which are living in the same monastery all the life, but like for different audiences, let's say.
Yeah. In this case, l'image est vraiment ambiguë parce qu'effectivement la position renvoie à celle des pèlerins, mais c'est aussi l'attitude des moines qui est l'attitude de l'humilité absolue. C'est-à-dire qu'en fait, l'image est ambivalente. C'est comme le Christ d'Autun. Il est à la fois assis et debout. C'est-à-dire que vous avez vraiment cette superposition de sens qui les rend extraordinairement complexes et qui fait effectivement que le discours s'adapte. Avec une hiérarchie que l'on retrouve dans les sermons, on sait que les sermons qui étaient destinés au cœur des moines ne sont pas les mêmes que ceux qui sont tenus sur la telle paroissiale en même temps.
I don't know, it's quite interesting because there is ambiguity into this scene between the pilgrim gesture and the humility of the monk. And we are playing with this ambiguity which is central, like the Christ in Autun who is staying and at the same time he's sitting. And the Christ of Autun is in the sense an enigmatic person, but also we know that the sermons pronounced inside of the core of the monks was quite different than the sermon pronounced at the same time outside from the parish. So we have this double reading. But I can add something. I was like really impressed by the level of let's say initiatic references in the cycle. And my impression first would be to say that the principal, let's say, user of the cycle was the neophyte, which is the novice, the monk who just entered there. And in the sense, we already saw that the portal of Conques needs a certain mediation. We need the monk who is explaining. So if it's conceived for the monks, we know that exists the function Novizmeister, so the head of the novices, who is the ideal person to take care of the novices and to introduce them to the Benoit's life. Yeah. And he will tell you, see, he also did it. He was rescued from the water. He was like punishing himself. I mean, the carnality, it's a problem. Nice woman with is the devil. Attention.
This is maybe it's completely crazy, but for me it a little bit seems like some older tradition which was changed, because we know that that like for the neophytes, I don't know, were used those lateral naves in the parts which were not so visible.
We don't know it. We hope.
Okay, we hope.
That's what he wrote. We are writing a new project.
But
yes.
But if maybe this can be just, I don't know, the some like the like some older tradition which became and was transformed like that in the like the monasticism area or something like that. I don't know, maybe it's completely crazy, but just what you said.
But do you need a tradition? I mean, if you are introduced to the art history as students, you have the first lecture which will teach you just what's an object.
Yeah,
how do you, I mean, it's absolutely natural to use tools to introduce persons. You don't need a tradition.
Yeah, I understand, but I meant that, you know, the chapters which are not the most visible part of the church, and they were like not so.
So they need the mediation in the sense. Yeah, that's interesting. The necessity of the mediation. The used objects which are
not so visible. Yeah, for those who needs to this mediation.
Klasičko je skeptik.
No, I agree.
Oh, you don't.
No, I absolutely agree.
So purely Lasičák.
No, it seems very novice.
Yeah.
And that could be
initiative.
Yeah.
But I don't see any problem with the initiation being done outside and the first step of initiation being done inside. And even the two coexisting. I don't see a rupture or a change in any kind of tradition.
But it's true that following, well, we will discuss it a bit tomorrow. I hope we'll discuss it more. Well, I will not speak about this example, but
because it's not the same audience.
It's not the same.
Which is already inside of the classic world,
but
which is arriving.
On the other hand, it becomes at that time is already the only Christian initiation. I mean, since you are baptized in your childhood, you don't have any initiation. I mean, that's something which really changed during the Middle Ages quite fast. 7th century is already done. For the monastic life, as well as the priesthood and the marriage becomes the initiatic rituals. Since the first one, the baptism, is already like gone, because you are baptized children. So that's something interesting, because you don't have this official part outside. And so the mysticity of the penetration to the new space is linked with the second initiation, and you cannot enter into the sacral space if you are not consecrated yourself, except for really exceptional situations. Of course, we know about kings. The emperor were allowed to enter the sacral space, not to coronate them. There are other exceptions, but the rule is that you have to be initiated in order to enter. And so it, in this sense, of course, it reminds, but in a more anthropological way than I would say history one, the question of the mystagogical catechesis. If you are baptized, you don't know what's happening. And then you have 8 days to understand. So becoming monk, you know something, but it's only after initiation you are like now really introduced to the complete situation.
Et puis je crois aussi que ça forge une identité commune. Enfin, ce sont des références communes. Enfin, de toute façon, l'initiation, ils sont passés par là, et ça, c'est aussi un ciment. C'est des références communes et partagées. Et ça fonde aussi une communauté. Enfin, même si, à un moment donné, le rituel peut changer. Mais ces images-là, elles ne montrent pas une ritualité. C'est en ça que c'est très fort. C'est que finalement, elles sont dégagées de toute la dimension liturgique. Ou en tout cas, toute une dimension rituelle visible.
That's interesting that all those images are in fact maybe linked with these processes, but they are all ritualized. So they are not direct references to any ritual. So do you have this paradox of something which can be read in a certain context, mediated by someone, but on the other hand there are no evident allusions, for example, to the ritual of the initiation? Okay. Do we have any other questions? The silent part, no questions?
Et puis peut-être juste, ça me vient, mais on parlait de la nécessaire visibilité, mais je crois que les images pour le culte des saints étaient vraiment majeures. C'est quelque chose qui est assez bien connu, hein, les dossiers sont bien tracés, où on sait que pour qu'un culte d'un saint vive, en tout cas pour les fidèles, il faut qu'il y ait des images. Ça, c'est un phénomène qui est très net pour les 11e, 12e, et je crois que ça, c'est moins ma partie, mais ça se poursuit après. C'est-à-dire qu'il y a des cas absolument nets où ce sont les images qui créent le culte. C'est-à-dire qu'en gros, il y a une image qui est créée d'un saint qui n'existe pas, et le culte prend. Et
There's the idea that the image is the creator of the cult. Without the image, you don't have the cult. In the 11th, 12th century, sometimes the cult of a saint starts with an image of an non-existent saint and becomes a real.
Et puis parfois c'est vraiment très très net. Hein. Par exemple, on parlait du Dora, puis je reviendrai aux images après. Le Dora, la collégiale du Dora abrite les tombeaux de Saint Israël et Théobald, qui font aujourd'hui encore l'objet d'ostension. Et c'est une création complètement pure. C'est-à-dire qu'en fait, ces moines, on en a fait des saints, mais on a commencé, avant d'établir leur culte, à construire l'église, dont le chevet évoque le fait qu'il est riche en reliques. C'est-à-dire qu'en fait, l'image du chevet renvoie à la présence de reliques. Donc on a commencé à construire les crins pour ensuite installer le culte.
Yeah, well, that's a beautiful example of the church we'll see this afternoon, where two saints are like intronized as saints, but it's a pure invention. And so first the monks started to construct the church with already into the apsidal part visible the presence of huge and important relics, which were still not inside. And then they like created the cult of those saints. So you have like the first step, which is the promotion, the visual promotion, and then only the arrival of the cultic objects and the relics.
Et ça, c'est un cas au 12e siècle de chanoines. Hein. Donc c'est vraiment une pratique. Et donc on sait aussi que les images sont prépondérantes, hein, pour le culte. Et dans le cas de Saint Benoît, la relation au saint est extrêmement affective au XIe, XIIe siècle. C'est-à-dire qu'il y a un rapport au saint qui est basé vraiment sur des relations d'affectif pour les fidèles, au point d'ailleurs qu'il y a des plaintes des prêtres pour dire que les saints sont plus adorés que le Christ. Et
it's just a really affective relationship in the 11th, 12th century with the saints. The persons are like really having a sort of, let's say, para-erotic relationship with them at that point that the priests are angry. We have documents telling that it's not nice that the believers prefer saints than the Christ himself.
Et dans le cas de Saint Benoît, évidemment c'est toujours compliqué de mesurer la part de réalité, mais dans les recueils et les chroniques autour du culte de Saint Benoît, au XIe siècle, je fais ça de mémoire, au XIe siècle, les paysans rentrent, c'est documentaire, ça apparaît, alors est-ce que c'est réel, j'en sais rien, mais les paysans rentrent dans la crypte parce que les paysans qui travaillent sur les terres de l'abbaye sont malmenés par un seigneur local. Et ils considèrent que travaillant sur les terres de l'abbaye, ils doivent être protégés par Saint Benoît. Et donc le récit rapporte qu'ils rentrent et qu'ils se précipitent armés de gourdins vers le tombeau et qui tapent le tombeau avec leurs outils en traitant le saint de paresseux et en lui demandant de se réveiller. C'est-à-dire qu'il y a aussi ce rapport-là qui fait que, comme on est dans l'affectif aussi, on a besoin que ce soit visible, que ce soit palpable, que ce soit tangible.
But there is a beautiful episode of 11th century when the peasants working on the lands of the Abbaye were attacked by an aristocrat. They were like really angry with Saint Benoit because he didn't protect them. So they enter into the crypt with all the objects in their head and they start to fight with the tomb. Like if Benoit, please wake up. Benedict, wake up. We need your help now. So don't be so lazy. And there is this affectiveness which can turn like in a sort of partial aggressivity, let's say. But it's something quite interesting because you have really the interaction between the lay people, the peasants, so like the workers, which pretend from the same. And therefore we need the image.
Et ce qui est important aussi de noter, c'est qu'on attend qu'il soit efficace. C'est-à-dire que s'il n'est pas efficace, c'est problématique.
And we need a certain efficiency. If not, it's problematic. But well, for me, the other point, and this my last question, is that we saw like 2 or 3 times the same image of Benedict sitting with tonsura and sitting on the throne, and having maybe, well, I'm a bit deformed by our friend Saint Foy, but I'm quite tempted to imagine a sculpture because also you are. Cécile was speaking about the cell of Saint Benedict, and I would say that it can be a cell. But if you like look carefully to the stuff which is on Saint Benoit, it looks more like a ciborium than like a cell.
Oui, c'est vrai. It's true.
So
tu as raison.
No, because it's evangelists are they are not from profile. They are more from anfas, and that's really, I mean, if you imagine, well, we are speaking manuscripts, the evangelists are utterly sitting like that, writing, but it's the emphas which is the main point of view. And here we have really the profile, and we have this small, it can be from the manuscript, but on the other hand, can we imagine the cult of the most important monk of the West? These relics arrived here already in the 7th century. They are contested, but they are very important, without any sculpture.
Yeah, but I mean, sometimes the sculpture replaces the body entirely.
Of course.
And if you have the entire body, you don't need a sculpture in a way. Or
I don't know. On a un autre cas, mais bon, j'ai pas forcément de réponse à toutes vos questions, mais on a un autre cas qui est intéressant, c'est à Saint-Nectaire avec le buste dit reliquaire de Sainte-Bodine. Quand j'avais étudié les chapiteaux, j'avais été frappée parce que si vous avez en tête le buste reliquaire de Sainte-Bodine, je sais pas si vous...
Do you remember the big reliquary of Sainte-Bodine? We saw it with Cynthia Hahn, so the golden bust of Sainte-Bodine.
Et il a en fait, donc c'est un buste qui se réfère à une sculpture tardo-antique. Si on regarde la manière dont les cheveux sont représentés, on voit bien qu'on est dans des références qui sont romaines et tardo-antiques.
His hairs are like close to late antique sculpture, so it's quite an evident reception of late antique or late Roman sculpture.
Et sur les chapiteaux, et ça c'est assez fascinant, et c'est en ça que je trouve que c'est toujours assez fantastique de travailler sur le Moyen-Âge, sur les chapiteaux qui représentent Saint-Nectaire et Sainte-Bodine. Donc il n'y a plus de reliquaire de Saint-Nectaire, en tout cas pas sous cette forme anthropomorphe qu'on prête au reliquaire de Bodine, puisque tu as l'air de considérer que c'est peut-être pas un reliquaire. Eh bien, si vous regardez sur les chapiteaux, quand il s'agit de donner une apparence à Saint-Nectaire, ils reprennent, uniquement en citant la chevelure, ils se réfèrent au buste reliquaire. C'est-à-dire qu'en fait, ils associent réellement l'image et qui permet une identification assez nette sur les images de Saint-Nectaire. Et c'est assez génial parce qu'on voit quand même à quel point tout finit par se confondre et qu'on veut donner. On veut donner une apparence, on veut donner un corps, littéralement, à ce saint.
No, also, we don't know what was the second reliquary, the one of Saint-Nectaire, but on the chapters where he's represented, the hairs are curly in the same way, like curly, like Bodine. So the image reliquary becomes the real body of the person which is represented. And that, but for the Betis question, I would also say, I'm sorry, that you are like, I would agree with you until the 9th century. Because for me, of course, the most obsessive experience is the Ambrosian Basilica, where you have the altar with the entire body of Ambrose, and you don't create any image of him, but just a big golden reliquary, which is a very symmetric one, very like ordered one, but no, I mean, no materiality. But then something happens. And we can maybe imagine it that it happens not with Sainte Foy, but Sainte Foy is for us the monument when it happens. And apart the Bernard scepticity at the beginning of 11th century, is the way which will like become the dominating one. We saw, I mean, in Beaulieu, the beautiful Virgin, the three-dimensionality had something really so incredible that no, I mean, the body without image, without sculpture, is not so powerful, definitely not. We have some case where we have to deal with it. It's the St. Francis example, because the body of St. Francis is there, and there are no main images, but the answer is on the double basilica covered of images of Francis. So you don't have to access to the image with the body, so you will cover the space with images of his presence. So,
but these are narrative images.
not only now, the Chimas one, it's like an icon of presence.
I know, but in a different scene, it's besides the Virgin. It's
Of
not
course.
only an icon of Francis
No, that's right.
who is there. I mean, and there is a big difference between two-dimensional images and a three-dimensional
Of course.
big statue. You can't compare that much
No,
those between.
No, for me the point is that Francis is an exception, and it's also later. But
And what is it that happens?
Donc je pense que même si c'est moins, parce qu'évidemment quand on voit le buste reliquaire de Sainte Foy, c'est très présent, hein, je pense que les autres images sont des signes de cette présence. C'est-à-dire que ça concourt, même si elles sont moins visibles, ça concourt à créer cette présence quand même.
yeah,
But I have-
the other images are also interesting, are not so powerful like maybe the bust one or the City of Maestas, the sculpture, but they are still constructing the holiness of the presence through those signs.
Yeah, because the body, well, I wasn't at home, but the body of Sainte Foy is there the entire body.
No,
No.
it's just
Just the
Okay, so that's why sometimes you have these huge reliquaries and they are representing the part that is inside. The sculpture of Sainte Foy, it's a bit of exception, but it
Yes.
still represents that, I mean, you have a big part of her body, it means you have her whole body, and you sort of finish the whole body in the statue. Then you have the statues of Virgin, because you don't have any relics of the Virgin. You have statues as kind of representation or replacement of the whole body. But if you have the entire body, I don't see the point to represent it like to do this replacement of the missing body, the entire missing body. That's the problem for me. So I wouldn't be surprised that if you have only the skull, you will do this big bust reliquaries, or if you have only the finger, you will do the arm or such stuff, or you have this and you do the arm, because it's the replacement, the representation. But the whole body doesn't need a replacement and representation.
Do you want to say something? Or?
Yeah, it just makes me think about the discussion about the real presence and the iconic presence yet with Hans. And I think you're probably right, but the idea that the whole body is there but it's not visible. So we need something iconic to accede to the real presence which is in the body which is there. So I don't see there's such a problem. If I have body but I cannot see it, I put the image to make the step to the body. But yeah.
And we have very early examples. The first example which we have of this kind of entire body without any doubt, linked to the powerful image, it's Sant'Agnese in 7th century Rome. You have the huge image and you have like the entire body.
But I feel I don't know if there is that big difference between the statue and the image. But I feel that there is. You have
Well,
a
that's
two-dimensional image to evoke something else, but you have a statue as a replacement of that something else.
But you are now speaking then a sort of anthropologue, which it can discuss, but then there is the question of the sources.
Yeah.
So in the
And that's
sources
why
we have
I'm asking. I'm making
no.
a statement.
No, but it was like very for me it's interesting. But on one hand, the sources are absolutely univoc. You're speaking about imagines, imago, imagines, and you describe like imago everything, which is image. So sculpture as well as the imago. I would agree with you that there is more power, but we can go back to our beloved Bernard d'Angers, who, meeting Sainte Foy, we discuss it a lot in colloques, so I'm just repeating, is shocked but by her and by all the other sculptures which are like present into the Massif Central, because he tells they are idols. And I would say that at a certain point the only difference, and it's the reason why, for example, in Italy, I would say there are such a long tradition of the absence sculptures that they are really linked with the past. In 7th century Rome, we know that the city was covered of sculptures. So sculpture was like synonymous of the past. And then at a certain point, in Gaul, so far from Rome, the three-dimensional objects appears again. But the question was not so much with the different presences as about the fact that the Christianity was constructed without the third dimension. And of course the third dimension is defined by all the church-like intellectuals, like exactly the same like the normal image. But in fact, and then you're right, it's something different. Something is happening because it's more present. Because Sainte Foy is a present. When we are walking with the candles, and we will, I hope, produce with Peter the film very soon, we were like falling down. She was present, something was happening. And there is, the two-dimensional images had not, in a certain sense, this real power. You can imagine what you want, but if you see Sainte Foy into the eyes, you are like present of a body. But I don't know if we can exclude, if in the general frames it's so different into intention than what happens instantaneously. And then of course we have at the other point of your entirely present body, I'm absolutely sure, I don't have in mind no examples, but absolutely sure that we have examples of huge important sculptures linked to the entire body. They have to be. Because no, we have just searched carefully to the sources. Yeah. But I'm sure that was happening because there's the other point with the relics. We know it both. Relics are, and Cynthia Hahn demonstrated quite convincingly, the relics without the reliquary, without the visibility, are less powerful.
In that case, you would have the whole body and the statue.
Mm-hmm.
And are we talking about the statue reliquaries like Sainte Foy, because you cannot place anything, or you can, but you have to disrupt the body in order to put a part of body into the statue.
And it's enough a finger. You can have the entire body and only.
But you have some examples of such practice to disrupt the whole body, because the entire body is sanctified, is valuable if it's still entire. Then if it starts and you send it all over, it has no importance anymore. But if you have the whole body, you will cherish the integrity of the body.
For example, St. Peter's the Martyr. It's a late example, very late in Milan. You have the tomb, which is this big tomb on columns. We are 15th century, or 14th century, and on the sculptures you have the scenes of the life, and he is on the tomb. So you are in the between. You have the entire body, and you have the iconic presence. So you're the iconic.
You have a statue of him?
Yeah, if I remember well. I have to
What kind of statue?
I don't remember. I have to check it, but no, I don't want to say like bullshit. But I'm sorry for the camera. But no, we definitely need proof. But I would say that, for example, the sarcophagus with the represented person can be a solution, because you have the entire body and you have the real presence, and you have the iconic presence which is on the sarcophagus. So that's.
But it's not a three-dimensional sculpture.
Yeah, it is. if it's on sitting on or staying on.
But it's still linked directly with the body.
Mm.
And we were speaking about
Portable, movable something.
yeah, and it's something different.
Yeah, and maybe the question is that we are speaking about the whole body, but so it depends how long after the dead the body was and which dimension the whole body had. You can put it also to the small reliquary when it is severed. But it's the, I don't know. You have all the
bones,
all the
like you would put the
No, I don't know. But for me, more the problem here is maybe that Saint Benoit is here as young boy, then older, then old and in different positions. So it seems really as a narrative and not as a statue or just a hint to some statue, because we have too much changing. It can be.
Il est régulièrement quand même en position d'autorité, de majesté. Donc il y a quand même cette dimension qui est donnée par la position même, et puis le fait qu'il ne soit pas assis sur absolument n'importe quoi. Enfin, vous voyez, c'est...
Il est combien de fois il est assis comme ça?
3, je pense.
Au moins 3. Si on compte la grotte, j'ai pas fait le compte. Il est assis... Alors là, il prie. Là, c'est difficile. Il est assis. Il est assis dans la grotte. Là, on ne sait pas trop, hein. Peut-être l'investiture. Là également. Puis, il est assis ici. Pas dans celui-ci, c'est un des rares où il est vraiment frontal. Et il est vraiment engagé. Et il est assis pour la représentation du miracle du paysan.
4 times.
Et la dernière, il est pas.
This active.
Yeah.
No, it's
But what other representation of Benedict, like in manuscripts and so on? Maybe it's just kind of the...
We will speak about another example of Benedictine representation this afternoon, so we can partially solve the question, but it's quite interesting. We have really to search into the sources in order to see if we have, because my impression is that if you don't have the image, at a certain point the cult of the saint loses success, or you replace it with something. Because in Milan, it's clear that they have to put Ambrose somewhere. They need an image, so they put the narrative scenes perhaps. They had to maintain the visibility of the saint. Despite of the magnificence of the golden altar, it was not enough. They needed to add the visibility. Because the relic, even the entire body, is quite abstract for concrete touch. Yeah, it's so abstract.
But here are relics of Saint Benedict after 7th century. So it's beginning with quotes and without image, lyrics only without image.
Well, we don't know.
For 7th century,
Yeah,
I
but
think that it's possible.
Yeah, for 7th century, yes, but because, for example, in Mont Saint-Michel, it's the same example in the case that there were like the kind of relics of Saint Michel, I don't know, the marble and so on, and in the 11th century there is a change, and then suddenly something is happening, and maybe statues developed or something. So I think it's the same, like more or less the same problem, that before it was enough, and then it wasn't enough.
Some arca, you don't have the body, you have only a marble slab.
Yeah, that's the same. Yeah,
But-
of course.
But the
I
difference is that it was enough to have the stone.
I
and
know
suddenly not.
before, because the
And
because the
it was-
relics were enough.
But
Of course.
there's also the certain sense that three-dimensional sculpture is so successful that I would say there are no rules. They are just dominating. I mean, there becomes everything, and they are different way of justifying. They put relics inside of the Virgin sculptures. They are doing several stuff, but finally, the victory of sculpture is
So just what's the datation of all this? Because we didn't talk at all about the datation, so it
Yes.
could be also interesting to maybe put it back in the context.
Yes, it's so difficult. Ils sont difficiles à dater. Les chercheurs ne sont pas du tout d'accord. Certains ont tendance à considérer que tout est une même campagne de sculpture, d'autres non.
So the question of datation is quite complicated. On one hand, part of the researchers is convinced that it's like everybody done in one phase only, but other persons thinks about serial campaigns of sculptures. And
it's difficult. C'est vraiment compliqué. J'aurais du mal à me prononcer sur une datation.
It's difficult to decide for one datation, but still we are, let's say, what's very probable.
Fourchette. Si je vous dis seconde moitié du 11e, vous serez pas tellement avancé.
Si, non.
Seconde moitié du 11e, c'est ouais. En réalité, pour être absolument honnête, je dis nous, c'est pas nous, il y a une réévaluation totale des constructions en France, des chevets déambulatoires et chapelles rayonnantes. C'est-à-dire qu'en réalité, on est en train de revoir toutes les datations. On ne sait pas trop où ça va nous emmener, mais ce qui fait que, en fait, là, on est vraiment sur un terrain extrêmement mouvant. Parce que l'historiographie a fait que pendant très longtemps, on a commencé à dater à partir de monuments emblématiques qu'on a situés en début de chaîne.
Cluny.
Oui, entre autres, voilà. Et en réalité, on se rend compte que c'est peut-être pas ça et qu'il y a peut-être eu des choses différentes. Et là, en l'occurrence, ils sont en train de fouiller la grande Saint-Martial de Limoges. Voilà. Et manifestement, toutes les datations vont être remises en cause.
So, just the problem is, okay, second half 11th century may be the main datation, but the problem is that in France now they are reconsidering all the datation of all the churches with the ambulatory and the remnant chapels, because in following the evolutionist historiography, the idea was that we have like the chief, the main place where it's invented, chief of file, and then you like you follow this kind of first monument. But what's happening now with the excavations is that we are like discovering that there was something before. So it's not necessarily Cluny the beginning of this way of construction, and so all the, let's say, apsidal parts of the churches of this period between 11th and 12th century had to be reconsidered, because we can now imagine a completely different chronology.
C'est très compliqué, je vous donne juste un exemple. À Poitiers, on a deux églises. Notre-Dame-la-Grande, qui est une collégiale avec un déambulatoire, et puis, donc, qui est consacrée en 1086. Et on a Saint-Benoit sur Loire, qui était Saint-Hilaire-le-Grand, qui est une collégiale également et qui est consacrée, elle, en 1049. En tout cas, il y a deux dates.
We have two churches, sorry, just one in Poitiers, just to give you an example. One is Notre-Dame-la-Grande, consecrated in 1084, and Saint-Hilaire, which is consecrated in 1049. So we have two churches and two dates.
Or, si on observe l'architecture, on se rend compte que Saint-Hilaire a une technicité en termes de voûtement, notamment du déambulatoire, qui est bien supérieure à celle de Notre-Dame. Or, la consécration donne pourtant Saint-Hilaire bien avant. Or, on s'est beaucoup fondé quand même sur les dates de consécration des hôtels pour dire, bon ben voilà, c'était construit. Or là, manifestement, il y a un hiatus important entre la documentation textuelle et ce qu'on peut observer.
So here is the problem that we have, so to say relation, but if you see the technical aspect of the construction of the church, Saint-Hilaire seems to be much more complex and maybe, let's say, evoluted than Notre-Dame. And suddenly we have this hiatus between the written sources and what we can observe in the architecture. And this duality, like, change a bit the situation.
Yeah. Change la situation, change évidemment la datation des chapiteaux, donc ça veut dire une réévaluation de la chronologie aussi et de la datation des chapiteaux. Donc c'est pour ça que je marche un peu sur des œufs. Ça fait quelques années que je travaille moins sur la sculpture pour toutes ces raisons, parce que ça se déplace et puis surtout, la formule n'est pas de moi, mais c'est très compliqué d'appréhender la pensée visuelle de chapiteaux sculptés. Parce que vous avez des îlots de cohérence au milieu de plein de choses. On a du mal, contrairement à la peinture murale, où on voit bien comment ça fonctionne, quels sont les liens d'une image à l'autre, les juxtapositions. Avec la sculpture, c'est très très compliqué. Et il y a eu un très très beau projet qui a été porté il y a quelques années par quelques chercheurs. Ils ont essayé de cartographier les chapiteaux dans les églises d'Auvergne pour essayer de voir s'il y avait possiblement un système. Et en fait, ça fonctionne dans certains endroits de l'église et pas du tout dans d'autres. Donc c'est vrai que c'est compliqué de se colter à la sculpture.
No, she's just like that. She's like prudent, very prudent, and she doesn't study so many sculptures last year because it's so complicated. They are island of a certain order. We use in the presence of the chapters and other. It's not functioning at all. A couple of years ago in Auvergne, they tried to conceive a sort of catalogue of the positions of sculpted images inside of the space of the church, and there were some spaces of coherence and other completely incoherent. So it's really, in a certain sense, impossible situation in this context.
Yeah. Donc ce qu'ils ont pu observer, c'est qu'il y avait souvent une progressivité avec plutôt, voilà, ils arrivent à voir qu'il y a quelques zones, mais ça reste, en tout cas dès que c'est des choses un peu historiées, ça devient compliqué à mettre, à faire circuler et à faire correspondre les images les unes aux autres. C'est beaucoup plus simple dans les manuscrits, dans la peinture. Alors lâchement, j'ai abandonné la sculpture.
Okay, no, so there are certain progressions, but when the chapters start to be narrative, it's like really complicated. This is the reason why it's much more easy in manuscripts and or wall paintings. And Cécile admitted that he leave this sculptural work because of that, because it's really almost impossible in a certain sense to do it. Now, for now, we will see. Okay, do we have any other questions? No? So I think we can finish for now, and we'll have a last short lecture this afternoon, and we will also go to see the church together. So it will not be with the camera, hopefully, but we can. We will spend a bit of time, because we didn't talk for now, for example, about the Tour Porche, so the Westweg, which is quite huge and important construction. Okay, thank you.